rep through this. Easy for listening. I was able to do it. Easy for dancing. I'm not a great lover of cats. That's my fear. You're a disgrace, you are. Not me. That's my fear. You're a disgrace, you are.
Hello and welcome to One-on-One Shadowboxing. Have your say. Today we got Andrew Luobikis in our studio as a guest. Andrew, your name is a little bit strange like mine, Luobikis. Where is that from? And where is the family origin?
It's from Lithuania. Dad came into Fremantle after the Second World War as a displaced person in 1949. One of the first wave of immigrants from there after the war.
And is still here since then? Or?
No, Dad passed away several years ago now.
But the family is still here?
Yes. Oh, well, just basically me and my brother, yeah.
How do you like WA or Australia?
There's no other place to be, is there? Especially WA.
That's what we think, that's what we hope.
Well, look, I've travelled all around Australia. Work's taken me many places, and I always love coming back to Perth. Certainly Sydney and Melbourne, the population, the traffic, the tolls, everything else that goes with it. It's great for a visit, but
not to live there.
Not to live and live near the coast like I do in Fremantle. It's no better place to be.
Obviously, you wanted to have your say in the city council. What was your disappointment?
Look, we bought an old Italian-built home, 1960s home. It was actually quite a good, solid house on limestone foundations. And
Where in Fremantle? Sorry, in Beaconsfield?
On Marty Street, which runs at the back of Edmund Street, which is a heritage precinct.
Yes.
We looked at a couple of options to renovate the old house, and because we were starting a new family, we were looking to have extra children, and looked at the options of getting extra rooms, and the only real option was to go up. And when we looked at the cost of doing that, it was $300,000. It was cheaper to knock it over and build,
which is
exactly what we did. And
lots of people doing that.
There's a lot of people doing it, and we've got a 550 square block. It's a smaller block than what we had in Hamilton Hill. We had near on a 900 square block in Hamilton Hill, and it was a lot of upkeep. And we found part of the reason we wanted to move to Beaconsfield was that we spent a lot of times on the weekend commuting into Fremantle, and thought this is ridiculous. Let's just look for a place and live in Fremantle.
Much more convenient.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
So to answer your question, that's where it all began. The planning process, the building, wasn't too bad, to be honest. I suppose it was later down the process when the house next to us, where a lovely old lady lived, and another 550 square block, small modest house on the middle, great trees, plenty of trees in the back, plenty of trees in the front.
Very rare.
Very rare. Non-subdividable block at the time. That was around about 600 square metres under the current zoning. Mm-hmm. Then she obviously had to move. She was too old and went to an elderly home or something, I'm not quite sure. But anyway, the person that built it was a sort of an amateur developer, and had some people live in it for 3 or 4 years, which was one of his bricklayers lived in the house, who did a lot of work for him. In fact, I had him build the fence,
your fence.
the brick fence, but dividing the properties. And a few years down the track, the owner of that property, the amateur builder, developer, thought, well, I'll see if I can get approval to subdivide the block and knock over that house. Okay, well, let's see how he goes. He ended up talking to one of the local councillors who guided him through the process, how to do it and how to, I'll use the word, manipulate the system. And they managed to change the setbacks from our fence to their property by another 300 or 400 mils to allow the block to be subdivided into two 300-odd square metre blocks. The council policies with sustainability and affordable living was part of what his mentoring and guiding through that planning policy was all about.
Yes.
Though it was a single-storey dwelling, it had a 4-metre wall running along that side of the house to catch the sunlight, and setbacks within the property, which was all within the zoning, obviously being guided through that process. And we objected obviously to it and said, look, it doesn't adhere to the planning codes, the zoning, all the thing. We were amateurs in that, but when we had a look through the council documents,
it was obvious.
It didn't. There's a policy within Marty Street and Edmund Street to protect the heritage and the amenity of the street. And when I finally went searching through the documents, I ended up finding, because I didn't know about that policy, I found it by a bit of a Google search, and lo and behold, even our house should never have been approved because it says in the policy you shouldn't have two-storey dwellings on there. So we would never have even, that would have been told to us at the start, we wouldn't have even built. We would have left the original house and looked for something else to do or somewhere else to go, whatever. Here we have it. We've got a property that looks like it's going to be a short-term dwelling, a one-bedroom, no parking, because that fits in the policies where the council's heading at the moment. They'll reduce the amount of cars in the area. And we've already got a bit of a problem with cars because there's a few rentals on the street. They're under the auxiliary dwelling laws that were just changed by the new CEO, actually. He won an award for those innovative policies for auxiliary dwellings and granny flats to allow owners to rent those out, which is fine, that's, make a little bit of extra money or whatever. So we've seen a big influx of backpackers and people living along our little quiet street that used to be. So that got me involved. And I started getting a little bit heated about that process and went to the council meetings and listened to that be dismissed and any of my opinions. Then, we lost that. We forgot about it. Then we started talking to our neighbours, and there was a house affectionately known as the Ice Cream House, a blue heritage-listed home on near on 2,000 square metre block, which divides Edmund Street and Marty Street. And a couple of builders, property developers bought that. A couple of brothers bought that property, wanting to subdivide it. Nothing wrong with that, it's a big enough property.
Yes, by the sound of it, yes.
We thought they might retain the original home and somebody might beautify it, and like a lot of people on our street have done. And they got approval for partial demolition of the home and some stipulations within the development, which I'm not 100% across at that particular time. So what they've done is gone into it and ripped the roof off it, pulled the floors up on it, and all the windows, etc., before the council or somebody has said, hey, hold on a minute, you haven't had approval for the full demolition. That was near on 10 years ago now. It's been that long that the seeds that were under the floorboards have grown into fully fledged trees now. So they're towering above the roof line in this stone house that, mind you, was wrongly listed as an Art Deco heritage house by the Council of Boffins. And once it was stripped back on the facade, it was realised it was a late 1800s stone house. So that sat there as graffitied and another affectionate term. Somebody's graffitied on the front as Cindy Crawford's freckle. I'm assuming that means a spot blight on a beautiful bit of scenery. So. That's, and talking to the neighbours, they've fought it as well and really got nowhere over 10 years.
And what's now? And
recently, I went to another planning meeting and saw that it got full approval for demolition under the mayor's guidance, who's been appointed in the last couple of years as on the heritage committee, which was quite surprising to find out as well. Then what I've found out at that same meeting is the house down the road, which is another heritage house, part of the heritage street, because they've got a frontage and a back, they've allowed the lady to put 3 demountable dongers, literally mine site dongers, on the back of this property. And because she pleaded at the council meeting that she was an unemployed environmentalist, needed extra funds to help renovate the front property. She wanted to rent out either the front property or the back properties and generate a little bit of extra income. She had some guidance by the councillors, like the previous builder did, on how to get around the council policies using the sustainable and affordable housing, because that fitted into it. It's sustainable, it's affordable. And here we have it. She got full approval for 3 demountable dongers, and that's under the auxiliary housing policies. She should have, if anything, been only allowed 1. So there you go.
So you couldn't say the Fremantle City Council is not helpful.
Well, see, I went the wrong way about it. I should have said that I was an environmentalist and wanted to go down the sustainable, affordable route, and I probably would have got my way.
Yes. So you have to know the rules.
You do
and have to know how to walk around the rules.
That's right.
Even in local politics. Now, I was really reading something in the Fremantle Herald, which was, bringing my attention into your current activity, which is an amateur journalist activity, or you are a professional journalist. I don't want to say no.
No, I actually work in the automotive industry and have done for 25 years.
So you put in some letter from the readers, which is turned out as an article, and wasn't a bad article, I have to admit.
Oh, thank you.
After reading it.
Might have to change careers.
Probably that's the way. So, and that was really interesting, especially because it's highlighted the mechanism of the council as it works or not working for the ratepayers. And I heard lots of things in Fremantle and around Fremantle, in the Fremantle area, from people on the street, on the beach, in the cafe, all over Fremantle. They're saying the Fremantle City Council is lately became so corrupt as never before. And they're also saying that the current mayor is the worst mayor in history in Fremantle. After reading your article in the paper, I realized that, yes, they can make different decisions, what they're really making. So please stay with us, because after the short break, because we have to go for a short break, we will talk about the Fremantle City Council, their practices, and Andrew's article. Hello and welcome back to One-on-One Shadowboxing, Have Your Say. I'm still with Andrew Luobikis. And Andrew, you're working with Nissan. Are you driving a Nissan?
Definitely.
But are you driving an electric Nissan?
I have driven one, and many a times I can have one whenever I like, pretty much, yeah.
On that note, your article was not about Nissan, not about the electrical cars, but mainly the Fremantle City Council's decision, which they approved to build a electrical refuel station in Fremantle, and using taxpayers' money, mainly for the building of that. So what was the ratepayers' money, sorry.
So similar thing,
ratepayers' money. Why are they doing that? What is wrong with it first? Second, what do you think why they're doing it?
Well, look, it's come about through an initiative that I can see from the RAC that's putting in an electric highway from the city down to Augusta. So I think at the moment it's...
So RAC, the insurance company, building an electric highway.
Yeah, which is interesting in itself, and working in the industry, I know that they haven't consulted with our industry that I'm aware of. It's really just a partnership that they've worked with.
You mean the RAC didn't consult it, or...?
Not with the motor manufacturers,
yes.
Certainly not with Nissan, not that I'm aware of, and Mitsubishi and the
But
others.
they consulted with the City Council, because somehow they convinced the City Council they're giving them $120,000 for that fuel station.
Well, it's actually $170,000.
Oh, $170,000.
RAC have generously decided to chip in $40,000 to be able to put their livery all over.
And the rest is the
rest is the ratepayers.
The ratepayers from Fremantle,
$130,000.
So, what's wrong to having an electric fuel station in Fremantle?
Look, I don't think there's anything wrong with having an electric charging station in the Fremantle area. Not that there's anything wrong with having one in Mandurah, where there's currently an electric charging station.
So what was your sort of sticking point?
Well, the sticking point is who's paying for it. And
yes.
Having investigated what's happening around the world, What I've found is it's either state or federal governments or industry themselves that are funding these projects, emerging technologies, where they feel that there's benefit to ratepayers, taxpayers, the community at large,
yes.
As that technology emerges. I had a look at the Mandurah minutes for their agenda on their...
Which is part of the RAC,
which is part of the highway.
End of it, yes.
And from what I can determine from their minutes and in the approval, the council and the ratepayers didn't foot anything apart from the planning approval to allow a couple of charging bays, and the rest was picked up by the RAC, and they'll have a tariff for the users. So no burden.
So they're charging.
They charge the users to use
and that's
it.
how they're maintaining it.
That's right. That'll help with the maintenance and the ongoing cost, and therefore no burden to the ratepayer.
So the Fremantle City Council, how couldn't they just do the same?
That's the question that I asked.
And what was the answer you got?
Well, similar to what I said in the article, it was a fairly fluffy answer, like a lot of the answers that we get, and very non-specific, and that it was a direction the council have chosen under their sustainable policies to drive...
Again, the sustainable policy
Sustainable policies
yes.
again, yes, which...
They love that word then. Fremantleans love it.
Yes, and to me it seems like it's just becoming politicised. Most of the people sitting on council are from various political parties, mostly to the left, whether that be Greens, to the left, far left of the Labor Party. We even have a Socialist Alliance councillor on there to try and redistribute the wealth of the capitalists within the community.
That's not working with this proposal because the RAC is not redistributing its wealth.
No. Well, I'm certainly redistributing
But
my
they
wealth.
are a members' organisation, they're not capitalist, you can say that. But still, the process is, and why not, if they're doing it elsewhere, why don't the Fremantle City Council did not manage to get them into the hook and say, okay, yeah, we're giving you some land, but you have to pay for it.
That's right. Well, in fact, what I've seen through some of my industry journals and some articles that in the Ride Council in New South Wales says they gave planning approval only for a hydrogen fuel station for some of that emerging technology so that Hyundai can share that with Toyota and
the mix use.
Some of the other brands to be able to trial the vehicles and use them, and eventually customers can use the station, and that was funded by the industry themselves, not by the ratepayers. So it can be done, but is that a responsibility of the ratepayers, especially in a council that is struggling to cover their rate base? They're looking for higher densities to bring more ratepayers into the area.
But they're charging extraordinary rates. The rate is going up and up and up, and not with the
Exactly.
Not with the percentage of inflation. No. It's going far beyond that.
Well, in fact, our rates have doubled, 100% increase in the last 3 years.
Last 3 years.
From around about 1,500 to 3,000 a year.
That's what the other people say in Fremantle. They couldn't imagine why and how the council is managed to get these high hikes on the rates. And that's what they're crying on the streets, and I don't understand why don't they, the ratepayers going to the Fremantle City Council, why don't they demonstrate and asking for, you know, you're a member of this association, the ratepayers, they ever discuss that issue, the rates in Fremantle?
Certainly.
What's going on?
Years prior to my time even getting involved, the Residents and Ratepayers Association have been involved and had many interactions with the council and been totally dismissed on every front.
And what is the basic of dismissing the ratepayers on this extraordinary? I mean, 100% in 3 years has nothing to do with inflation, nothing to do with anything.
No, that's
what is to do with?
Well, look, I can only see that it's a political agenda. There's definitely when I look at some of the socialist drivers, it's around redistributing the wealth, and from my experience, I can definitely say that if you're working, you've built a property, you're trying to build wealth for your family, you're seen as some sort of capitalist, a heretic almost within the community, to be brought down to a starting peg where maybe you're on the same level of everybody else. But if I think about it, I come from a very poor background, a Labor heartland. I've grown up around Fremantle. My family were invalid pensioners. I still remember shopping at the Good Samaritans for my clothes to go to school. I've got a very Labor background, yet I saw it as an opportunity.
Fremantle used to have a very Labor background. That was the tradition.
I think it's slanted more Greens now in their approach, but certainly I see it as a good thing to look after the people in the community that are struggling, disadvantaged, yes. Like I was growing up. But the policies at the time of the Labor government gave me every opportunity to better myself.
But you see, if they're raising the rates in Fremantle area, in all the suburbs, that dramatically what they do, where is the redistribution of that money?
Well, it's interesting you bring that up as well. I thought I'd have a look through some of the financial reports of the City Council, and it's
yes.
quite evident to me that you can see a lot of money being funneled into sustainable initiatives. In fact,
such as?
Well, I've seen last year there was some money channelled into grants for, you might have heard of Josh Byrne that runs the ABC gardening program.
Yes.
He lives in Hilton. They gave him, from what I understand, in excess of $40,000 to put solar batteries in his house to come off the grid so that he wouldn't have to pay for electricity.
That's very thoughtful.
Yes, at the ratepayer's expense. I haven't seen any for my house yet.
I put my solar power stations and the panels from my own money.
That's exactly
so no
right.
one has offered me anything.
No.
What do you think about the council's new initiative when they say we have to make some democratic moves in the budget? So we let the people decide what they want to use the money for.
Participatory budgeting.
Participatory budgeting. So is that came up because of the complaints about the high rates, or what do you think?
Well, look, I think it's their tilt, and the mayor specifically, that was brought to bear by the Ratepayers Association. Yeah. Tony Toledo ran an article in the local Herald regarding a 10-point transparency plan. We discussed that many a times with the council about transparency, yes. And we were dismissed.
In the budget and the money spending exactly. And everything, decision making,
and
yes.
they told us there was no reason
to be transparent?
Well, to go down that path, because they already were. You could go down to the council, you can ask for documents, you can do whatever you like, they'll give it to you at the council offices.
Yes.
Try doing that. I know that a few people have looked into the King Square project, yes. And the NPV, the net present value calculations that were done on the King Square project, where they say there will be a $30 million NPV at the end of the project. In fact, a $3 million NPV at the end of it. Okay. In fact, the calculations that some of our people have looked at is in fact a negative $30 million NPV, which will be a burden on the ratepayers at the end of that project,
so
if it ever happens. Positive value.
Positive, but 30 million negative.
Well, if you look at how they've calculated it, they've looked at the new library facilities and yes. New council facilities as a increasing asset on the buildings themselves, not a depreciating value that most buildings are. The Residents and Ratepayers Association have been trying very hard to get the exact calculation, how they've worked out these figures, and they've applied for freedom of information, yes. Many of those. They've delayed, plenty of delay tactics, and they've mentioned they've lost documents. They can't, which this project hasn't even got off the ground yet.
No,
Serona
it's
still
new, yes.
waiting for an anchor.
Going around.
They're waiting for an anchor tenant,
yes.
And they refuse to give those documents over to have
the ratepayers.
Have the ratepayers really analyse the figures.
So that doesn't sound really good, practically, being secretive and not communicating. But they always, not transparent, but they always, what I'm hearing in Fremantle from the City Council, they are transparent, they're always consulting with the people. Maybe they forget to say, we made a decision, we're consulting, we don't give a shit about what your opinion is, and we doing the thing
they do
what we want.
They want to do anyway.
And we got a consultation, so tick, tick, tick the box, And that's how it is?
And we've seen that with the Arthur Head project down near the Roundhouse.
Yes.
And Sunset Events being allowed to run concerts down there. I've sat in many council
What is the
meetings.
benefit for Fremantle?
Well, I see a lot of negatives. You know, I take my daughter down there with a little bicycle, 7-year-old, and we go for a ride. I probably won't be able to do that on the weekends when they block off the path up towards that area for the stage and the concert speakers, etc.
My last question for this interview is that how do you see the future of Fremantle or the ratepayers' influence over the council?
I'd like to be positive about it, and I'm trying to be.
Yes.
But you know, when you're working, and a lot of the reason there's apathy in the town is the people that should be engaged in this aren't. It's an apathy. When they talk about participatory budgeting, you're only going to get the same 1/3 turnout of people that are slanted to one section of the community. You're not going to have a diverse range of people making decisions on how the $1 million is going to be spent. And the $1 million is only the start of it. That's a test example. Once they open the books up to this panel, which, mind you, is run by the Curtin University Sustainability Department, which seem to be involved in a lot of projects around Fremantle. I can only assume that it's where a lot of the money will be focused. So our streets, our underground power, our paving, our maintenance, our amenity, I can't see that changing too much.
Andrew, I sincerely wish, good luck for the Ratepayers Association of Fremantle, and if they can, make the changes because it's needed.
We'll try.
Thank you again, and don't forget, next week, same time, same channel, one-on-one shadow boxing. Have your say.